Hello everyone, my name's Neville Gaunt from the UK and I'm delighted to be taking in TRG LearnFest, and I hope and encourage you to come along, have a listen, have fun, but more importantly take action, because it's your actions that's going to make the difference. So come on board, have some fun, and I'll see you shortly.
Assalamualaikum friends, this is Kaisar Abbas and I'm super excited to be part of this LearnFest 2020. I will be delivering a very special keynote session on the 14th of August, which is also Pakistan's Independence Day, and my session starts at 10:15 in the morning. My topic is something I'm very passionate about, something I've been developing for the past many years and trying and testing with many organizations around the globe. The topic is speed coaching, and this also is the title of my upcoming book, and the book's foreword has been written by the world's #1 executive coach, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. I'm extremely excited to be able to co-create a powerful learning experience with each one of you, and are you ready for it?
Morning, everybody. So glad to be here. Good to see you, but I can't see you. Hope you can see me. So welcome to TRG's LearnFest 2020 Digital Edition. We're extremely grateful to Umair, Sarah, and Hamad for the extraordinary amount of work that they have done to put this all together. And the fact that it is here live, started exactly at 10 o'clock in the morning, and everything seems to be working, is testament to that. I'm grateful also to the founder members for the guidance and steering and the amount of input. And then, of course, connecting to all the wonderful presenters and the audience out there in order to make sure that we do have a successful event. I'm also grateful to the presenters and the participants who are taking out time. And the structure of the program, giving you chunks in the morning, afternoon, and evening, makes it convenient for us to be able to access the sessions that we would like and give us time to carry on with other activities in our day. Just a brief intro to what TRG has been. We had very humble beginnings many years ago. I think it's about 25 years ago, with a few of us learning and HR professionals who would meet. We would take turns in different people's offices and training rooms and share the learnings that we had, what was going on in our organizations, what was going on in the industry, and then we decided that we should expand it and have monthly tea meetings so that a wider audience could participate. It has grown from there. We've had hundreds of sessions. We've had many eminent speakers, local and international, come and address us. And we've done LearnFest twice before. The thing is that we managed all of this for several years without any formal structure. We would meet, we would take turns doing the work and the logistics and hosting. No structure and no egos. But then there was a time came that we had to formalize things because, there was a little bit of money that we used to collect for the tea meetings, 500 rupees each. And so they need to formalize it. And then we had to get some articles of association together. And for that, we're extremely grateful to the late Azhar Mir Saab, who diligently worked on the Articles of Association, brought in examples from other similar organizations, and over a lot of samosas and a lot of meetings, we got this done. Really hard work done by Azhar Mir Saab. But through all of that, I ended up as being the president of TRG, though everybody else does all the work. Learning is a lifelong journey. It's not an event. And it's a continuous process in every facet of our lives. Though we almost always think of learning as something to do with corporate and our professional lives, our personal lives can also do with a lot of learning and coaching. Our theme, just like about every other one these days, it's about the crisis. It's framed by the crisis. Now, a few years ago, the term VUCA became very, very dominant all over the world because of all the disruptions that were taking place. VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Okay, but if you think about it, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. If you did not hunt successfully, you did not eat, and you could be some other animal's meal. So, uncertainty, crisis, floods, pandemics, all sorts of things have been taking place over a period of time. It's just that now we're in a different phase of evolution where we have technology to help us through these times. Until a few months ago, I'd never heard of Zoom. I just heard of StreamYard 3 days ago. And Teams, I've been using now at least 3 different platforms each week. So there's a lot of personal learning for someone who's tech challenged as I am. Uncertainty and crisis are what has enabled us to adapt, to change, and to grow. It is part of our DNA to evolve. Okay. I would like to also just talk about how will we evolve from this crisis. We have adapted to the current situation with work from home, online teaching, ordering food through all these different apps. But now the fundamentals of teaching, which have also been about rote learning, have to change. We have to move to a more understanding based, critical thinking based, and move away from memory exams, go towards, move to the focus towards understanding and appreciation. But on a bigger scale, will the world also realize that what we classify as essential workers, the medical staff, the sanitary workers, are at the lowest end of the economic scale. We're applauding for them, banging tin pots to acknowledge their work that they've been doing for us. But will it ever change? Will government spend more on human health and services as opposed to arms and ammunition? I really don't know, but that is something that we need to think of, again, outside of this conference. I have a few senior colleagues on hand, so I would be requesting them to also say in a few words and welcome you. But before we do that, I'd like to also acknowledge some of the leading lights who have passed on and acknowledge their contributions to TRG and to the whole learning fraternity all over the country. Okay, we had Mia Ghani Saab, who many, many, many years ago, as a visionary, founded the Pakistan Society for Training and Development. That the institution, there's actually a physical building that has been constructed based on his hard work and his solicitation of donations and his personal donations and time to create this. And it's a facility that a lot of people enjoy these days. Azhar Mir, I had mentioned earlier, was a stalwart of TRG, founder member, and did all the work for the our Articles of Association. Nadeem Chauhan, a young colleague, who in fact he was a colleague of mine in Shell, moved to KZR and did some wonderful work with them and became a really, really popular presenter. He even had his own TV show and he was loved by all. Then we had, of course, Ramiz Alawala, also left us at a very young age. Ramiz had done a lot of work in Pakistan and overseas and made a huge contribution. Then there was the inspiring Sarmat Tariq, who, through his motivational talks, inspired a lot of other people to get into a can-do frame of mind. I'd like to just acknowledge also our founder members who will be hosting different events during the week. There's, of course, Shireen Naqvi, who does a lot of work in this space. Mr. Kamran Rizvi, who's the godfather of this fraternity. Cyrus Magol was with us when we started out many, many years ago. He was a colleague of Azhar Mir Saab. Of course, Jamil Janjua did a wonderful job when he was there with the British Council. He hosted a lot of our meetings, and he continues to be a real pillar of support for us. Ash Chaudhary has been doing a lot of work in the space as well. and she's contributed a lot to this learning event. Syed Nusrat Ali, of course, wonderful, charming, erudite gentleman who will entertain you with his Sher o Shairi, as well as hosting a session on Pakistan Day. We had Zara Chinoy, who introduced us to the concept of mind mapping. Never heard of it. Just like I'd never heard of Zoom, never heard of mind mapping. And she took us through a whole session of that, which was very interesting. And then we had Arshi Aziz also, who coordinated a lot of the events that we had in the earlier days of our evolvement. So that's what I have to say from my end. I would like my colleagues who are on the line, I think, Nusrat, I can see you. Would you like to say a few words?
I think you have already said a lot. And I would certainly take one more name in the founding members. Alam Ali Pota was one of the initiators along with Azhar Iqbal Mir Saab.
Yes.
And they have really done a lot. And after that, Shiri has shown a pivotal role in all these activities. She does all the hard work and we take the credit, basically. And Kamran, as you said, is one of the gurus who started training as a separate institution in Pakistan. He's the one who introduced a separate entity to train people. And I would certainly say that we started from the scratch, from a very humble start. It was just an informal chat group where we used to assemble under one roof with Alam Ali Pota, Azhar Iqbal Saab, and we decided that why only chatting and gossiping, why can't we share our own experiences? Because everybody is coming from a different background, bankers, myself coming from Welcome, which is pharmaceutical industry. Azhar Iqbal Mir Saab, I think he was in Hex in those days. It was a chemical industry, and Shiri and Aisha and Leon. So, to the listeners, I would like to say that we started in a very humble and informal manner. And it was such a blessing for us that as we grew, it became a big tree now. There are hundreds and hundreds of experts and trainers and professors and management gurus. They are coming, all coming, and more than 100 in this festival. I'm talking to audience that you will be listening to more than 100, not only Pakistani experts, but from abroad as well. So I think this is a great opportunity. The people who are not yet registered themselves, they should start putting in. And I'm sure, I'm very happy that now the young people have taken the reins of this ship, like Omer and some other young people. JJ is there. JJ has really just, as Leon said, he's been hosting TRG for a number of times when he was in British Council. So it's great. Over to the president, Leon.
Okay, so we'll do Shireen, Kamran, and JJ because we have 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
Shireen.
Thank you very much. I just want to wish all the participants good luck, have fun, and also enjoyment, and to relish this time for the speakers who have joined us. Thank you to everyone, and thank you, Torque, for making this happen. Over to Kamran.
Kamran.
Thank you. My message to not only the trainers, but also to the participants is simply this, that learning happens when we change, and change happens in milliseconds, and the time that we have, the manifestation of change will take years, of course. But pay attention to what is being said. Penny will drop and big things can happen in our lives. That's my core message. Make the most of this 1 week and pray that we are able to continue such a process through the times that we are going through. Thank you.
JJ. JJ, it might help if you turn your mic on. JJ, we can't hear you.
Yeah, that's always happens. Like I said, I think whatever has to be said about TRG has been said by Leon very eloquently and very clearly about our history. I think, there was a time when, like every organization, there comes a situation where things seem to be slowing down, and especially with regards to TRG, which is actually the most informal structure that has been around for the last 20 odd years, without any issues. It has continued year after year after year without breaking down. But the real reason for that is that somewhere down in about 10 years back or maybe more, there was a conscious decision to bring in the young people. And I think that's where, we got, a new life. And since then, since these young people have taken over, I believe, and I'm sure that, things have done very well for TRG. We've had a lot of trainers that have been groomed through the process of TRG. So it has done, a good job of promoting training and the industry. Thank you.
Thanks, JJ. We've done exactly 15 minutes and 17 seconds. So welcome to all the participants. Welcome to all the presenters. Hope you have a really good experience. See you throughout the week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Leon.
Assalamu alaikum everybody, this is Azra Maqsood and I'm going to be one of your facilitators at the upcoming Learning Fest. I'll be talking about corporate philanthropy and volunteerism, especially in the times of this COVID crisis. And it's a wonderful, super duper opportunity for all of you to be a part of this exciting learning phenomena. If you haven't done so, please go ahead and register yourself at www.trg.org.pk. I look forward to meeting all of you between August 10 and August 15. See you guys then.
Hi everyone. I was just checking out, when am I getting online? Okay, so thank you very much. Firstly, Leon, for an amazing ground setting. Thank you, TRG, for this brilliant initiative yet again. And I call this an initiative this time around because it's digital, unlike the previous two times. I feel very, very honored and excited to be speaking on the main theme of the entire LearnFest, which is learning in crisis. It was very kind of Umair and the team to allow me the space to speak about this particular subject, which is very, very close to my heart. And unlike others, they were not on my case in terms of what will you say, how will you say it, what are the contents, where are the slides. So I really, really appreciate that. What we'll do is this. Since I'm doing the very first keynote of the entire thing and I'm speaking on the theme, I'd like to do three things in this session with you. Firstly, I'd just like to set the underlying tone for learning. We just heard the founding members speaking about learning and how important learning is and what all they have learned. So what I will be doing is I'll be speaking a little bit about learning itself, the underlying tone. I will then get into learning in crisis, something very fascinating that I'm pretty sure you'll find very, very interesting. And then I'll end with a few reflections, which in my language I call #flip thoughts. It's just nice to look at things from a very different perspective. So that is something that I will be doing. Now, when I'm speaking of the underlying tone, what I would like everybody to do is not only this session, but all the sessions. We want you to enjoy the experience. If you notice this program, all the collaterals that have been built, all the marketing that has been done is all to enhance the quality of enjoyment. It's a fun experience, and how cool it is. Funworks doing the initial part, introducing the entire concept of fun. The best part is that the difference between fun and comedy. Fun is where you engage yourself. Comedy, you may have engaged, you may not have engaged. It's a one-way dialogue. It's something that you could view on TV. But fun requires you to engage in the process. And my request with everybody is, as you go through the entire experience of LearnFest, not only my session, the entire experience of LearnFest, TRG Digital 2020, is to have fun, engage yourself. Now I don't know about you, but I definitely miss the people, seeing everybody in their full space as opposed to the little matchbox sized pictures that we have in front of us. But I would actually love to see everybody. At the same time, that does not mean fun needs to be compromised. So what I want you to do is just And although I can't see you, I just want to make sure you're doing it, okay? So I just want you to wave a hi at me. Hi! Oh, whoa, thank you. Okay, let's try once again. Hi! Well, this is better. Okay, I still see somebody saying, okay, so he's doing it again. Get a life. Learning is life. Learning is forever. It's LIFE. So my request is, engage with me in the process. I need to have a yes. Oh, wow, I see comments coming in. I already see somebody also trading on the stock exchange. Anyway, that's exactly one of the indicators that we're having fun. So some of the rules for my session in particular would actually be that you're taking notes. Do respond to the chats, the yeses and the nos and the highs and the things, so that we overcome this challenge of not being able to see each other. Obviously, the emotions do carry when you're looking at each other like this. When you're into a program like this, I generally like to quote my coach, my mentor, John King. He's the author of the brilliant book called The Tribal Leadership. And he says something very interesting about learning per se. This is something that he could be speaking for about 4 hours, and I'm just giving you a quick snapshot of the concept. He says when you're into learning opportunities like this, there are 3 kinds of mindsets that you could carry with you. The first mindset is the audit mindset. What is being said? Why is this being said? Why does the slide look like this? Okay, how come they're not doing this? You're so busy identifying and auditing the problems, you're missing out on the experience. Okay? So this, for example, when people are thinking to join or not to join, and all the analysis that went into deciding whether to go in or not to go in. Now that you're in, you might as well enjoy the experience. So first mindset that people generally bring into learning opportunities like this is the audit mindset. The second mindset, which is very nice and chirpy, is the cherry picking mindset. Cherry picking is when you go around selecting what all do you want and what all do you like, even as part of the session. So let's say you're going through a learning experience with any of the speakers. So actually selecting, I like this, I did not like this, I like this, I like this. So I'm just going to pick this one up. The third and the most powerful form of mindset that I would like all of you to carry with you, not only as part of this session, but for the entire experience, is to be inquisitive. Be in a sense of inquiry. Try figuring it out. Try seeing what is being said. Try discovering all the beauties that learning encompasses. So you're not auditing, trying to find out what's the bloody problem with this. You're not cherry picking, but you have let yourself and allowed yourself to go through an experience, because this is actually what this entire LearnFest Digital 2020 is all about. It's about an experience. It's an experience for the listeners. It's an experience for the speakers. It's an experience for the team that put all of this together, and they're constantly working at it. And I think one of the most amazing things that has happened is there's constant appreciation at every point for what has been done, because of which we have probably reached up to this point. And we're right now just starting. And this is where we engage with everybody on the whichever part of the world that you're in. So my request would be, be inquisitive. And being inquisitive is like, for example, if I asked you, what is the nature of an orange juice? What is the nature of an orange juice? What would you tell me? You just put it down on the comments. I'll just see a few. What is the nature of an orange juice? Shoot. What is the nature of an orange juice? Very nice, Mahmood Sadiq. Our mind is like a parachute. It works when it opens, but I'm speaking of the orange juice. What's the nature of an orange juice? Somebody started writing, okay. So I see Shireen writing in private chat, tangy, sweet, liquid. Nature of orange juice, which is true. Hi Hamza, nature of orange juice. My question, nature of orange juice, quickly. It's orange in color. It's liquid. What else? Wet, yes. Like that one. It's nourishing, brilliant. Ali. It's fresh in nature, yes, it is. Have you just realized, I just asked you what is the nature of orange juice, how many things opened up? Now, had we just picked up a Google definition, we would have probably found something from the Wikipedia. We could pick up, let's say, even if you open up a dictionary, you found one definition, and look at the opportunity that exists in defining only with a simple question. What is the nature of orange juice? There's so many things that we could say. This is an example of being in a state of inquiry, trying to find out more. It's not about looking for the right or the wrong answer. It is not about a yes or a no. It is actually about the experience itself. And my wish for everybody is that in this process of learning and more so during the TRG Digital 2020, I'd like you to have a state of inquiry. Try understanding what is the nature of it. You may get answer to your questions, you may not get answer to all of your questions, but perhaps that is where the bigger answer lies. You will have time to discover, and it will not be rushed in any way. So with that thought in mind, and I think it's pretty cool, we've already started. Whoa, Hasnain Zafar, I love that. Vitamin C, 149%, 124. You see, now that, amazing, yeah, Hasnain. So as I said, there's so many different ways of looking at it. But if you sit with an audit mindset, I agree with this, I disagree with this. Cherry pick, I like this, I don't like this. So you kill the opportunity of learning so much more. So sit with a state of inquiry. All the sessions, there's some great speakers, they're saying some brilliant things. So with that taken care of, and I hope that you are in a state of inquiry with me. You're not trying to find out, okay, what is learning in crisis? Or for that matter, what all is going to happen. Join me in the process. Quick rules, just to make sure that it is beneficial. I would actually encourage you to take notes if you can. I have my sweetheart with me over here, so I will be using this little, but I would encourage you to have a paper or a pen with you. I would like you to go and do yeses and nos just the way that you'll be doing right now. I see Danish, I see Sayyida Maria Nakwi, Kursia. So at my request to the organizers are at the back end, I don't know who's sitting. So if you could just please help me out and make sure that all the messages keep on coming. So I know that we are connected. So please take notes. Make sure there are yes and a no responses. And if there are any questions, probably in the end, we will have a few minutes in the end for Q&A that we could look at. But my expectation would be that you're parking the questions for life, not in terms of life, but allowing life to answer back to you, as opposed to one little answer that I have. Obviously, you could get in touch with me whenever you want after the event as well. I'm available on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and different social media platforms. Let's look at learning in crisis. Okay, now when this topic, I heard the topic, I learned about the theme learning in crisis. Like any other consultant, my mind immediately goes into quadrants. So it's like, okay, learning and crisis. So what I did is, and don't worry if you can't see it, this is just to give my mind a trigger. So what I did is I just made a quadrant like this. So I made a quadrant like this. I wrote learning over here, and you could do the same thing, learning over here, and I wrote crisis over here. High, high. So obviously the other side would actually be low, and even if you can't see the lower end of the learning axis, you'll probably find out it is going to be a low. So now we've got 4 boxes. We have high learning, high crisis. We have high learning, low crisis. We have low learning, low crisis, and we have high crisis, low learning. So these are the 4 quadrants that I have, and I will specifically be speaking about these 4 quadrants. So I'll take you through a journey of these 4 quadrants. A lot of things to think about. My request again would be, if you feel like smiling, smile and put a smiley emoji up or put an icon up in the chat. So I know that you've actually enjoyed this and this actually made sense to you as well. Let's start off with the first and foremost, and this will help summarize the entire experience and a lot of other things, and hopefully leave you with a lot of reflections as well. Let me start off with the bottom left. So the bottom left was, if you've drawn it out, see the spine. So if you've drawn the quadrant, the bottom left, low learning, low crisis. This is basically what life gives to us. This is subconscious knowledge and information and learning that we have throughout life. So we do not put in the effort of opening up a book and going through the research, but this is something that life does to us. I'll give you a very simple example, and what I'll do is I'll take you through all the 4 quadrants and share with you examples as well. You've probably gone to a doctor's clinic, not recently, but I'm sure you've been to a doctor's clinic where while you're in the waiting room, they have these amazingly entertaining medical journals. Yeah, entertaining medical journals. Yeah, you get the idea, right? So you have these amazing books, medical journals, and you're skimming through that, and you find out a lot of interesting things as well. How does the intestine go, and how does the kidney look like? What happens to an inflated stomach? What happens to your body if you're not sitting straight? Probably nothing to do with your profession, with your immediate need, but you are actually just skimming through and you're looking through things. And there is, however, the fact is there is still information going in. There is no crisis at the moment for you to learn that. You're sitting over there and you're just skimming through. It doesn't only have to be a doctor's clinic with medical journals. It could actually be, yeah, Dr. Ambarada. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Ambarada. Yeah, Yeah, okay. I'll get deviated. I've got limited time, but you're spot on. And it could also be the airports, for example. I'm going to ask you a question. Have you noticed? Understandably, you are associated with flying in itself, aviation. You may have noticed, may not have noticed. The aircraft on the left-hand wing is a red color light, and on the right-hand side is a green color light. So there's little lights on the wings on both the sides. Now, imagine how many times we travel, how many times we look at that, but we probably never realized it. Now, I remember once I was with a friend of mine and we were just talking and we said, hang on, why is this red and why is this green? Then we looked at the other aircrafts as well. And we tried to find out what it is. And interestingly, the staff over there did not give a satisfying response, as a result of which what we did is we went up to Google and we said, what is it actually? Why is there red and green? And we found it out. Do we need that information? Are we using that information? At least I'm not. This is not my profession and I can't be changing the indicators as well. But something that I've collected, and this is something that all of us do in life. Low crisis, low learning. We are actually seeding information. If you want, you can write this word down at the bottom left of the quadrant, the bottom left quadrant of this thing that I made, which is low crisis and low learning. This is actually where seeding actually happens. So this is actually where seeding happens. So we've just gone through a seeding process. We keep on planting things. We don't know, we may use it, we may not use it, but that is information which is actually going in. Let's take it one level up now. This is one of my favorite ones. High learning, low crisis. Anything that comes to mind? When in life have you been in high learning but low crisis? You've been in high learning, low crisis. At what point in life were you at high learning, but crisis perhaps was not as high? Any idea? Shoot. I'll give you 20 seconds. High learning, low crisis. Are people responding? Okay, I still need to know. Saadat Khan, I love that. He says before COVID. You know, this quadrant, by the way, is very COVID inspired as well. I'll come to that. But in the interest of time, I'll tell you what it is. Yes, we are having fun. When you're high in learning and low in crisis, let me start off. This is something, maybe something will come to your mind. How many of you know what 4a squared plus 2ab could be? Any digits, by the way. 4a squared plus 2ab minus c. What did I just speak about? 4a squared plus 2ab minus c. What am I actually speaking about? Anybody? Yes, I'm speaking of the quadratic equation. And Javeria, spot on. In retrospect, formal education was low crisis and high learning for that age. Brilliant. Malik, you said the same thing. Muhammad Ibrahim, yes, spot on. When we were young, we went through high level of learning. So in school, so all the formal education that we go through, all the 1, 0, 0, 1, the matrices, the mathematics, geography, history. I can't remember the last time I was asked a question that I actually studied either in geography or history. I am being more concerned about chemistry these days. So there's a lot of formal effort. I am trying to understand disinfectants these days for the past about 2 months. So hydroperoxide and all the likes of that. But I'm trying to understand. That's why I said this is very COVID inspired. So what happened is that, that's where the formal education takes place. So it's high level of learning, and you actually you make the effort. You have to understand the pros and the cons and the whys and the critical thinking, as Leon said a little while back. But it doesn't only stop over there. It also comes up. So once you take it up to the next level, once you're out of school, there is still formal education taking place in different forms. For example, the training programs you go through in your career. All of those training programs, some of them, by the way, you may feel more structured and pressured, like the trainer out of facilitation. You have the project management programs, which is definitely more structured. But at the same time, there are other training programs you also go through, which are sadly called soft skills. I say sadly called soft skills because in the language of Tom Peters, and he's been saying about it for a very, very long time, that soft skills are the hard skills. They are actually more difficult. And I think what better time than now to actually prove how important all those soft skills were when you're trying to lead and succeed in the times that we're living in today. So for example, so let's just say coaching as an example. People have gone through coaching programs numerous times, and suddenly now they realize coaching is the way forward. it was always the way forward. Alexander the Great also needed coaching. But what happened is, because the crisis was low, so even if people have gone through the programs, they never really took it serious enough. Or for that matter, they'd come back to work and they say, okay, let's get back to work. That was learning, that was good. Park it and let's move on. So, and I say that the big C, COVID, somebody said high learning, low on. Yes, Javeri, I agree with you. Soft skills should be rebranded as life skills. You could lead that initiative. It's an amazing idea. So when I speak of it's like the big C in Thailand. Okay. So it's actually the big C when you're looking at this particular quadrant of high learning and low crisis. Big C. This is also the season, for example, now that people are stuck and working from home, hashtag work from home, or as I would like to think, perform from home. People have become certificate champions. And no offense, but like the Coursera certificate champions just sounds too cool, C-Cube. So everybody wants to do certificates, Udemy courses, LinkedIn courses, courses after courses, courses after courses. There's a friend of mine, what he does is, he goes back because they have, after every section there are questions. So what he would do is he would answer the question, then you would let the audio play on and on. So the videos keep playing and he starts collecting certificates. How can anybody get over 30 certificates in 20 days? High learning. High learning. Okay, but maybe the crisis wasn't real. Maybe the crisis was just a race that this person wanted to prove himself. So this is high certificate season when you're just doing courses after courses. Moral of the story being, there's a lot of things that people are doing for high learning, but they're not in crisis. This is where, so for example, if this particular space over here was about seeding, this particular place is actually about collecting. So you collect things. And I'll tell you why do I say this. So this is actually about the question. Can we say that learning requires crisis because even in school an artificial crisis was created? Yeah, tell me all about that. But I'll let me finish and I'll come to this. I will probably, you'll find out the answer, in fact, as we move forward. Paper learning. High certificate season. Yes, Dr. Ambaraza, spot on. Let's take into the other one. So this is like collecting information. So you have seeding information, just going into a subconscious. There's a conscious effort to learn, but not necessarily practice it over here. Then you have seasons of high crisis and low learning. High crisis, low learning. I would highly recommend you that you read the book Who Moved My Cheese. Okay? It's a brilliantly written book. And as a matter of fact, when I read the book the first time, even at that time, now they probably realized that it required an upgrade. In 2003 also, I actually felt that the book required an upgrade. The Who Moved My Cheese philosophy revolved around, including many other brilliant things, was adapting to change. And I've personally had a lot of issue with the concept of adapting to change. Even now, people are saying we need to adapt to change. The problem is, if you and I adapt to change, the question is, who is actually leading the change? Who is actually leading the change? Somebody else is probably leading that change, and we're trying to do is adapt. Where does our mindset come in? Where does that power come in? Where does that desire to explore and discover new things come in? VUCA, Leon spoke about right at the beginning. VUCA is a term spoken by so many people for ages. Suddenly it just hit them. Do you think it's new? They say, oh no, this is the VUCA world. It was always VUCA. These gears have changed. If you were leading change, you wouldn't have been as surprised. If you were busy coaching people, you wouldn't have been as surprised today in terms of what to do. If you were working from home at that time or used more technology, you wouldn't have been taken up by surprise right now. So using an analogy, because I said, this is like, and by the way, there are 4 things that happen to you when you're in this zone of high crisis and low learning. A, you eventually get into a state of depression because you're actually waiting for something to happen. You're trying to adapt. How much will I adapt? There's an element of fear. That's why there's the fear of learning, fear of the unknown. What is going to happen? Can I learn at this time or I can't learn at this time? Is this the right age to learn? Do you think I'll be able to cut it through in this age? Will I be able to work from home? Will I be able to make an impact? Will I get an opportunity to impress? So there's a lot of questions. Will I be able to use the right technology? So there's a lot of fear that builds up when you're in high crisis and low learning. You also have apathy. You could possibly just reach that near-death position of, I don't care, whatever happens, it's going to finish. I just hang around and see what happens, which takes you to waiting it out. Personally, this is like a haunted house. High crisis, low learning is a haunted house. What happens in a horror movie? If you've seen a horror movie, what happens? Till the day, as long as there's daybreak, everything is okay. And then suddenly The night falls. The night falls, the evils come out. The evils come out, and what do the people over there want to do? First, they want to fight it out. They're fearful, then they want to fight it out, then they give up. There are a lot of things happening, and at the end of the day, they have to actually wait till the day break. And when the day breaks, that is where life comes back. Sadly, just to give you an idea of what I personally feel about this state of people who are in high crisis, low learning, is people who want to live, but they're waiting for death. People want to live, but they're waiting for death. That is what happens when you're in high crisis and you don't go through a learning process, because you're just waiting in that haunted house, waiting for death, but just hoping one day in action, the day will also come. Let's go into the most exciting one before I go into the last 4 minutes of my session, which is high crisis and high results. High crisis, high results. This is actually where a lot of practice needs to happen. This is by default, the practice will happen because you're learning it for a cause. The cause is to help you out of the crisis situation. So you actually go into a lot of crisis, you go into a lot of application of what you have learned. And maybe attending a program like this is the right time for the application. The best part is there are a lot of things which are there. There may be things that you need to learn. For example, more recently, I have learned tools like Canva. I've learned video editing. The Canva is a brilliant tool. Video editing. This is the time where programs that you do need to convert into practices. So go do Coursera certificates, go do Udemy, LinkedIn, and all the different options that we have. Convert it into action as well, because that is purely where learning in crisis is actually happening. Because you are actually practicing and applying what you have learned. You're putting it into immediate action. And that is what basically adds value, and this is what learning in crisis is all about. You learn, you develop, you put it into action. Something I spoke with Umair some time back is, this is the age of iCube. Implement ideas immediately. Implement ideas immediately. Don't wait it out. You'll get into the horror zone. And the best part is, when I'm looking at the high crisis, high learning, there are a lot of things from history which now just needs to put into practice. You do not necessarily need to open up a book and do reading. You could actually put a lot of things up. For example, whatever you've been farming in the seeds of low learning and low crisis, so all the seeds that you farm now needs to give fruit in terms of practice. All the beautiful treasures that you have collected over the years, whether it was training programs on things like critical thinking, stress management, design thinking, diversity and inclusion, quantum linguistics, language, NLP, everything that you've been collecting all these years, bring it into practice. So you bring your farm to fruits, bring your museum, gain value from the treasures that you have. Discover what needs to be done, lead the change the way you would like it to, discover what the new things are, and you are in this zone. So basically, this is what learning in crisis is all about. And you get to choose wherever you are and how do you apply. So just because the times are such does not necessarily mean this is where you are. In the end, I just want to add a flip thought, hashtag flip thought. I said I will be adding in the end. I hope so far this was good enough and this is useful in terms of insights, and the nature of learning in crisis is now clarified to some extent. I repeat, clarified. So I'd like to end with a word, because some of you know that I'm very fond of language and words itself. I like to go to the meaning of the word. Where do they come from? What does it mean? The word crisis, interestingly, is a Latinized Greek word. It comes from a Latinized Greek word called crisis. But this crisis is with a K, so it's a KRISIS. And crisis actually means the turning point of a disease. And this is no simple disease. It is almost as good as recovery from death. And then over the years, the meaning has transformed, judgmental, decisive, and different meaning. But I really like the core where the word comes from. It's a turning point of a disease. If at any point you feel strangled and your life is not moving forward, if you feel you are in crisis, because crisis to me may be different from crisis to you, but it is that point you decide to move forward. And the best part is the point you decide to implement and move forward, you put your learning into action, you apply it, crisis starts going down. I wish you all the best. I hope you enjoyed it thoroughly. I hope you've got a lot of things to think about. Do think about it during the other sessions as well. Go into high learning. I hope that
Hello, everybody.
Hi, my name is Bronwyn Burns and I'm a corporate trainer here in Dubai. One of the best things I ever did for corporate training was to learn improvisation. And improv, we're doing it every day. We're doing it in our everyday life. But really there are some fantastic techniques you can learn to help you think on the spot and speak on the spot within your corporate training or coaching. So please join us this August 10th, coming up on Monday, 2200 hours PST. You can register for this training at www.trg.org.pk, and I look forward to bringing you some of the secrets of improv.
Oh, hello again, Farhad.
Okay, so thank you for being. Okay, great. So have fun, Leon. So I'll go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello, I think our fellow panel members need to be let in. Oh, I see Amir, I see Neville.
Good morning.
Good morning. Nahid was saying that it was showing that the room was full. So can you let her in? What's the time there for you, Neville?
Coming up to 6:50, nearly 10 to 7.
Wonderful. Just in time for breakfast.
Yes, very much, yeah.
Okay. I know Ehsan and Nahid were trying to get in. So where are our stage moderators?
Yeah, come on, guys. I've just traveled 6,000 miles to get here, you know? Give us a break.
Yeah.
I would just request those who are trying to get in, if you can try again. We had a lot of people in the studio. And I would also like to request the founder members who joined us for this, if you could now move to the TRG portal and enjoy the experience there. You'll also be able to use Slido and other tools so that we can have space in the studio. Thank you, Leon.
Thank you. Okay, so should we talk about cricket until the other two get in?
We'll also...
Yeah, why not? As we're up.
Okay,
it was a close run thing, though.
Yeah.
Exciting game for a change.
Yeah, I think let's start so that we, because we have 45 minutes and we can get through the session. So welcome to the panel on Reframe the Crisis. And our scheduled panelists today include Neville Gaunt, who's calling in from the UK. Nahid Chaudhary is calling in from Dubai. Ehsan Jamil from Karachi. Amir Niazi Saab also from Karachi. Wali Zahid, are you in Pakistan or in Houston? You're not only in Houston, you're on mute.
Okay. So I think the mute is unmuted.
Yeah.
But Houston is still there. Okay.
Okay. So we have two others who are joining in. I would request if we could start by, you just introduce yourself briefly, and then your take on the topic, so that we can then get the conversation flowing. We'll keep the questions as they come up on the screen. We will tackle them as we go along. Okay. So Neville, let's start with you. An intro and your take on the crisis. Yeah.
Sure. Well, my name's Neville Gaunt. I'm CEO of MindFit and chairman of Your Passport to Grow, which helps people succeed in wherever area they are. My background's mostly in oil and gas. And all I've got to say is, what crisis? The oil and gas industry has had a crisis. I'm not too sure what crisis we're in, frankly. I think we need to wake up and start smelling the roses. But there you go, there's a radical start for you.
Okay, Nahid, you're on. Welcome.
I am, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Leon. Good to be here today. How would you like me, because I missed the earlier part, so what would you like me to share?
Just short introduction and then maybe your take on what this crisis is supposed to be.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so how I'm adapting. Oh God, story of our lives this year, right? Yes, well, hello everybody. I'm Nahid, and I'm the CEO of Global Consulting. I began in the corporate sector back in Pakistan. After graduating from IB, I joined Unilever, and I was with Unilever working on very starstruck at that point in time as trainees and working on their various categories, including Lux, after which I moved with them to Australasia and then came back here to Lipton. Since then, so after spending about a decade with Unilever, I then moved and was based out of the Middle East, working with companies like Mondelez and the Hershey Company, but covering responsibilities for geographies beyond the Middle East, such as China, the UK, and Europe, Eastern Europe. I exited Hershey at that point at end 2015 and set up my own business, which is based out of there. And we have two verticals. It's called Global Consulting. And we focus on identifying and helping clients identify patterns that create new perspectives. And really help you tell the right story in the right manner. And the two verticals here, one is conventional marketing strategy, so you enter markets, but the other is really you can pick up this model and apply it to organizational culture. So in terms of what your employees are feeling and what the patterns are that are coming up from there for employee engagement and business. So that focus, and it's been 4 years of fantastic growth through referral until the crisis hit. And then suddenly work stopped. So this was back in March. And I think for the first couple of months, and I don't know how many out there can identify with this, I hope you can, and I don't want to be the only one. But for the couple of months, I told myself it's going to go away by itself, can't last. And I think one of the key things that I did then was busy being busy. So, because you have this, as an entrepreneur, when you're running your own business, you're working 24/7. And that changing from that was very weird. So it was busy being busy. Then the next thing that started coming up was that everybody in the world was attending a webinar, was upskilling themselves. And I thought, oh gosh, if everybody's doing that, I've got to be doing that as well. So I started picking up every possible area that I could upskill in. And still after that, I was in a place where the crisis hadn't gone away. If anything, it was getting worse in terms of work. And I felt I was being left behind because everybody seemed to say that, oh, this is wonderful, great opportunity for change. And I'm actually certified in change management for organizations, and I couldn't feel the change. So I think there were a few things that we'd learned, and I can share them here or later. But for me, the key pivot in my business was that after 2 months, I caught myself mentally by the shoulders and says, Nahid, get out of it. So shook myself out of it and re-looked at my business and started repurposing our digital assets. Repurposing means looking at them to how do we apply them to different functions? How do we license them out? How do we go into businesses with existing assets? And that has been a journey that was painful in the beginning and then messy. And now we are finally starting to see at the end of the tunnel. So so it's been a very interesting ride of denial initially, then realizing that nobody except I myself will get me and my business out of this crisis. And finally, I think at the end of the day, it's also about having some faith in yourself and believing in yourself that, it's not your fault. You're not the cause of the COVID. You're not the cause your business is declining at that point. And therefore, there's something in you that can restore it. And you look back and you pull back on previous challenges you faced in life because everybody has, and see what got you out of those to these. So.
Thank you, Nahid. Thank you, Nahid. Amir Saab?
Welcome.
Thank you, Leon. My professional background started with FMC in Chicago. FMC is a global conglomerate, and took me to Brazil and to Japan. The years in Japan were very consequential for me. The 3 years in the joint venture with FMC and Sumitomo. From FMC, they went on to British Oxygen and spent the next 20 years with British Oxygen, which is now Linde AG out of Munich. Gases, healthcare, and vacuum technology. And that was the time when we merged British Oxygen with Linde, is when the Great Recession hit us back in 2008. So some of the things that I'll be sharing with our audience today are those learnings that came out of that very major event, 2008-2012, as we were consolidating two large institutions with revenues of around 20 billion euros. The third part of my career, the learning piece, if you will, has been to lead Descon, Descon Engineering's chemical and petrochemicals business as a managing director and CEO. That's essentially where my professional life has taken me. And the best part has been the global experience. Factually, living in Japan, spending time in Brazil, traveling across North America, of course, with British Oxygen, the Europe, Asia Pacific piece. And as we progress along, I would like to speak about the learnings that are still relevant in terms of not only surviving, as Neville said, but thriving in this crisis. And they revolve around, and I'll just touch on them briefly and then come back to it later. Number one is about how businesses must rapidly recover revenues. The second piece, regardless of the business and market that we are in, it's about rebuilding operations. And the third part, what we consider to be a strategic imperative, is rethinking the organization, stepping back from the organization itself and rethinking our way through it. And the fourth, which has dramatically changed over the last 8 years, is the piece about accelerating digital adoption to enable reimagining the organization and getting ourselves aligned for the next 5 years. Over to you, Leon.
Thank you for that. Wali Zahid Saab. You're still on mute.
Is it introduction or
yes. Introduction of yourself and a bit about what the theme?
Okay, I think my main introduction for this audience will be that I worked under Amin Niazi when he was at the he was president at the board of PSTD, and I worked with you in that board. You know, so I think that's probably the best introduction. In terms of crisis, I think this crisis hit everybody without any awareness. And since I have been a China watcher, and usually Chinese media ask me to write on things that happened to them, so I was an early watcher of this crisis. So I wrote for China Daily and China Pictorial or China Radio. So I could see how it's going. But one thing I clearly knew more than my other countries' counterparts, that it's not going anywhere very soon. So I think the earliest, and particularly in Houston, where I'm currently stuck now, it's going to be here at least for another like 18 months. So all the multinationals there, which are based in Houston, like Chevron or oil and gas companies. So I think they are looking at maybe January 2022, they will be able to have the same kind of revenues that they had in January 20, which was this year before the crisis hit. So I think one, it's not going anywhere. Second, revenues are not going to come very, very fast. So I think there's a lot of patience. But I also realize there's an opportunity in this crisis. And that was, as Nahid mentioned, that there's an upskilling and also reskilling opportunity. And because I was struck here, so I worked on many other new skills, and whole my life has been like going from one skill to another skill. So I think this, my refugee status in USA for the past 6 months, so it allowed me to look at some new things and new opportunities. And I hope when I return this week or next week back to Pakistan, so I'll be able to utilize those skills. Yeah.
6 months in the USA and you still don't have an American accent. That's a shame.
Yeah, I cannot. I have so much difficulty, Leon. Let me say that, because I usually decline any opportunity which has English only opportunity. I can't speak English. I don't know what's holding me. Okay, go on. So, I hope if Neville allows me, so I can go back to Minglish or mix. Yeah. Okay.
So we actually have one more panelist, Ehsan Jamil, who is stuck somewhere in the system and can't get in. But very briefly, I'll just tell you about some crises that I've had to handle. And there's no time for learning. Okay, I used to work for Pan Am, and we had a situation once where the plane skidded off the runway in the rain, and then it got stuck there. We had to deal with a whole big crisis. A year later, there was a hijacking in which a lot of people got killed and a lot of people got injured, and we had to deal with all of that. No training for that. There was a bomb explosion outside the office. No training for that. In my career at Shell, we had several incidences of employees getting kidnapped. Again, no training for that. Those were real-time crises where people's lives were on the line. So by comparison, let me start with Neville. You said crisis. What crisis? Can you give us your take? Oh, Neville's disappeared. Yeah, there you are, Neville.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yes. For some reason you can hear me. Great. Yes, crisis, what crisis? I mean, we heard from Jamil at the very beginning, just after me, that he initially went into denial. Most people did. I know some very senior people in Pakistan companies leading these.
Okay, Neville, you seem to have been frozen. Okay, so let me move to Amir Niazi until Neville can get back. Amir Saab, your personal and corporate experience with regard to these changes that have taken place, and what is it that we can do to adapt?
I'll start with 5 key qualities for leadership that have come through in a crisis like the pandemic. And they start with a sense of resolve. And then moving on to resilience, both individual and organizational. And is about returning back to a viable enterprise. And 4th, reimagination, that I would be weaving into some of my remarks as we go along. And the 5th is a mindset for reform. Now, with those 5 leadership qualities in place, and those don't happen naturally, we work on those, we develop them, they evolve over a period of time. I will now go to the learnings that would be key in terms of dealing with this opportunity. More than a crisis, is perhaps one of the largest opportunities for organizations to move forward and have a very clear strategic plan for the next 5 to 10 years. And perhaps 10 years would be longer, so we will just stay with 3 to 5 years. Again, number 1 is the rapid recovery of revenues. And underpinning revenue piece is a startup mindset. It requires a mindset which is just that of a startup in Northern California, or in Boston, or in China. With that mindset, it is very important for the leadership to be human at the core. The third is the acceleration of digital tech and analytics, and done so in a very keen way. The fourth is a completely different paradigm in terms of a customer-driven, a purpose-driven customer playbook. And my reference is to customer journey mapping and all experiences associated with that. And the fifth that we look at is ecosystems and adaptability of the organization to the significant changes that are taking place. Now, those are the 5 underpinnings for the first strategic imperative, recovering revenues. Without the revenues, of course, the enterprise itself is not viable. And hence, I've placed that first. The second...
Sorry.
Should I go ahead with the other pieces?
Yeah, okay, let's go to Neville first, because he's managed to come back. Then we go to Nahid and then Wali. And S and Jamil is still lost in the system. Neville, you back? Neville, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, it would appear that StreamYard is in crisis because it won't allow people in and keeps booting people out. Just following on from that, recovering the revenue, and we heard from Wally that those in Houston, the oil companies, the oil companies haven't seen this as a crisis. I have to be honest with you. They've seen their revenues go down, but they're always prepared for the worst case. And let me tell you why. I've seen oil and gas prices in my career when I was in the oil industry, when I had a proper job. I saw it at typically $18 a barrel throughout the majority of my career. In 1 year, it went to $3 a barrel. Now, if you want to deal with a crisis, that's a crisis. You're not in control of your product cost. Of your product selling price. It's a commodity. All you're in control of is controlling your cost. And let me tell you what oil companies did the very first time that price went down. They started to cut. They cut people, they cut marketing, they cut jobs across the globe. Ever since then, they've never done the same. And there's a reason for that, because they know that these are aberrations. These are just blips on the long-term program of the oil and gas industry. They call it the life of field. And I think what we need to get into is to this attitude of how long am I going to be in this business? Where is it now? Where is it going to? And then dealing with what I can get on with now. Whether you're going to get those revenues back in the short term, frankly, is not necessarily in your control. And I hate to dampen what Wally said earlier, but the majority of all companies I know aren't looking for a recovery of revenues until the third quarter of 2022. And for those that can't work that out, that's another 2 years on from now. So, the crisis hasn't really unfolded. So I think what we need to be doing is getting out of this denial, where a lot of people still are, because they're going to say it's going to be recovering. Let's not worry about it. It'll get back to somewhere it was. Where that is, I'm not quite sure, but we'll be okay. And all that means is that they're draining resources and not dealing with reality. Some other people are in chaos. They're still trying to follow this, get the revenues up, reduce costs, put people on training courses, go do this, go do that. So it's a very chaotic arena. And this is where, the leadership of organizations organisations needs to get a grip, not just of what their team's doing, but what they're doing. How are they showing leadership in this quite difficult arena for them? I mean, they've never been through it. As I said, I've been through the VUCA world, as they call it, volatile, uncertain, etc., all of my oil and gas career. It was never the same on 2 days. So I'm lucky in many respects, but I'm sure you know an oil and gas friend that you can contact and just ask them how they're dealing with this so-called crisis, because that will help you immensely. But what we need to do is to be looking at this very narrow window of opportunity for everybody, working out where we are, what we can do immediately, and then look for the future. Because if you don't look like that, actually, you haven't got a business. So if you're not really focused on reality, your business will disappear. And we're seeing this on a daily basis.
Thank you, Neville. I'll ask Nahid now, because in your introduction, you mentioned that the personal impact to you seemed to be a lot more than the 5 of us. There are the 4 of us. So could you explain your thought processes in order to get you out of or get you into a more winning frame of mind?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Leon. I'll add a bit of a variable to that. The impact on my business, because I run my own business, was significant, and obviously leading that is, and it made me change certain behaviors. So I think there were a few things that I've learned coming out of this, and those are applicable whether you're a leader in a corporate sector or whether you're running your own business. At least for me, they've worked, and I hope that they might work for some of the audience members who are listening in. One of the first things is it's okay to be in denial initially, as long as you start to come out of it. And I think that's what's critical. There's a fantastic phrase that one of the coaches that I've worked with in the past, his name's Robin Sharma, if anybody's familiar, he says, change is hard at first, messy in the middle, and beautiful at the end. And that's been a phrase that I've tried to keep up. I've put it up in my room, in my office, at home in my study here, and it's on the wall. So I put up these reminders around, and just come in really handy when you have that little voice in your head that starts making you doubt yourself. That was one. That's at a personal level. The second thing is that it's not going to go back to normal, and that's hard to accept. So that takes time. It's okay to be kind to yourself and take time. But the third thing that also I saw a question come up about leadership behaviors post-COVID. And I was thinking, well, I hope we get to post-COVID, because at the moment we are in COVID. I think there's a bit of a paradox there, because in times of crisis, human nature is such that we revert to the known. Right? We revert to known behaviors. We close down. That's also part of the reason that you see unconscious bias, right? We fear what we don't know, and therefore we revert to. So there's a paradox, because suddenly reverting to known leadership behaviors isn't going to work, because that worked for the old normal, if you will, versus the new. And I think what's going to be key moving forward is literally going to be those leadership behaviors that in an agile organization are the ones we kind of play down. We talk about them, but we play down. Number one is empathy. Empathy is critical to get the best out of your team, whether they are employees in a corporate organization and you're running a team, or it's your own team in your own business, because everybody's going through a really tough time right now. Nobody's on holiday. We're working 24/7 from home. So that empathy is critical. Number two, I think it's very important to remain accountable. And if you can't hold yourself accountable, and it's something that I sometimes struggle with, if I lose focus, I drift off, then it's really important to team up with a mentor or a coach, somebody who you check in with every fortnight and who you have an accountability sheet with. It might even be a pal for some of us, but it's incredibly critical, because otherwise it is very easy to drift off. And in my experience, thank you, Hassan, I agree. In my experience, there are far more people who drift off rather than stay. So I think this is a key that I have learned, and I wish I'd known it at the start. Number three, look back at a crisis that you overcame. Everybody's had crisis. like this. Everybody's had tough times that they've overcome. And for me, I think there were a couple of crises that I looked back in, I'd say challenges. One was that I came out of uni, I'd been a star over there. I'd created the Lux Style Awards for Unilever. I'd got a Second Australia as a prize. I'd come back, and in 10 years, I'd gone from trainee to marketing director. And suddenly I was in the Middle East with my family, and I was a nobody. Nobody knew, nobody cared. So I was, nobody wanted to hear about Pakistan, it was the Middle East. And I think that was a great learning because it teaches you to be humble, to shut up and listen, where in the past, if you've been a leader, I definitely didn't listen enough. But when you start and you get back down and work your way up in that sort of a crisis, I knew that I could do it again. So I looked back and saw what had helped me then, which was listening and really throwing away whatever I had known. It's hard to unlearn whatever you've known, but I think that is critical as we move forward. So I just say that in all of this, and I really appreciate the corporate perspectives that are coming through from a building perspective, and hence I've tried to contrast, and thank you, Leon, for the opportunity to offer a personal one, because it begins with us, it begins with you, and what's going to be critical is to hold yourself accountable. If you can't make that journey alone, ask for help and think of a previous crisis and how you overcame that.
Great, thank you. Wali, you've been physically caught in the crisis and your business is here in Pakistan. How have you made this transition and what can you offer as advice to our listeners? Mute. Can you unmute yourself?
So with apologies to Neville, I'll try to speak in both Urdu and English. Okay.
No,
so जो
don't
पहला
worry.
इशू है मेरे लिए जो सबसे बड़ा इशू है वो ये है कि जो लॉस ऑफ पर्पस है, लॉस ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी है, आई थिंक सारा कुछ हुआ चूंकि यू आर अवे, यू डोंट हैव अ क्लाइंट बेस इन यूएसए बिकॉज आई डोंट हैव द कोचिंग सर्टिफिकेशंस दैट आर रिक्वायर्ड टू डू वर्क हियर. सो आई थिंक इन दैट जो बहुत सारे लेवल पे पर्सनली यू सफर्ड. So that was one. But it was also a learning opportunity. If not a business opportunity, it was a learning opportunity. So मेरा ख्याल है जो भी मेरी सबसे की बड़ी लर्निंग हुई कि पाकिस्तान में जिन CEOs को मैं कोच करता हूँ, खासतौर पर जो एक्सपोर्ट बिजनेसेस में है, मैंने पहली दफ़ा देखा उनको कि वो उनके लिए जो पीपल हैं दे बिकेम मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट, या उनकी सेफ्टी दैट बिकेम फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट दैन रेवेन्यूज और सेलिंग प्राइस और दिस ईयर्स बिजनेस प्लान. सो आई थिंक दैट वाज वेरी गुड हैपनिंग after a very, very long time. So rather than lip service, which actually, so if they had to close factories, they did that, and they would only reopen with SOPs and all of this. So I think that was good. Although I realized that after the initial safeguards, they are going back into the old position. So they don't need to. I think they can still be very consultative. They can still be very safety oriented, and they can still win. Okay, so that's one learning. Second learning for me was being here in Houston, because we have like, I think आज के दिन में शायद 163,000 deaths है USA alone. So largest country with largest. तो ये एक ऐसे मुल्क में जिसके बारे में एक आम तस्वीर दूर से ये है कि पढ़े लिखों का मुल्क है और यानी सुनते हैं. तो मैंने यहाँ पे सारा यानी फर्स्ट हैंड ऑब्जर्व किया कि अमेरिकन जो एक आम शहरी है उसने कोई परवाह नहीं की, ना हुकूमत की, ना डॉक्टर फौची की, और इवन जो प्रेसिडेंट भी है अमेरिका का वो भी मिक्स मैसेजिंग या कंफ्यूज मैसेजिंग वो करता रहा. तो नतीजा ये हुआ, अच्छा वो स्टेट जैसे टेक्सास में हूँ मैं यहाँ पे, इसमें पहले ये कम था लेकिन अब ये ज़्यादा हो गया. तो गोया वो सारी स्टेट्स जो अर्लियर यानी नीचे थी अब वो बड़ी तेज़ी के साथ वहाँ केसेस बढ़ रहे हैं. तो गोया इससे मैंने ये भी देखा कि कोई बचत मुमकिन नहीं है, चाहे आप यानी बिजनेस खोलें या ना खोलें. चूँकि टेक्सास ने जल्दी रीओपन किया, इनको भी हिट हुआ. जिन्होंने यानी आप कह लें कि देर गोया ज़्यादा वो इस्तेमाल किए, तो वॉट एवर इन द केस, लेकिन केसेस नहीं रुके. तो गोया मुझे उससे ये भी पता चला कि जो यानी इदारों की प्रिपरेशन है या सेफ्टी के जो गार्ड्स उसने शायद बहुत ज़्यादा हेल्प नहीं की. डिफरेंट तरह का डाटा, लेकिन ये भी आया. अच्छा इत्तेफाक की बात है बीइंग अ चाइना वॉचर, चूँकि चाइना में जब ये हुआ मेरा ख्याल है फरवरी में, यानी जनवरी में अगर हुआ है तो फरवरी में मुझे चाइना पिक्टोरिया ने लिखा कि वली आप क्या फोरकास्टिंग करते हैं कि चाइना इसके ऊपर काबू पा सकेगा कि नहीं, एंड आई रोट कि यस इट विल, और उसकी ये रीजंस है। लेकिन साथ में ये भी लिखा कि अगर जब ये आएगा यूरोप में या अमेरिका में तो ये वाला जो चाइना वाली यानी कैपेबिलिटी है ये मुल्क नहीं कर सकेंगे और वहाँ बड़ा क्राइसिस फैलेगा, और एक्चुअली ये हुआ। लिहाजा चाइना के सिस्टम को भी वर्सेस यूएस सिस्टम, और पाकिस्तान के बारे में तो एक जनरली वो है, एक फीलिंग है कि शायद गवर्नमेंट भी और जो पॉपुलेशन दोनों लेवल के ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा यानी मैसअप हुआ है। लेकिन एक सुपर पावर को के यानी ये बहुत बड़ी लर्निंग थी। तो गोया एक तो ये लर्निंग है जो कोविड के हवाले से, लेकिन एक और जो लर्निंग बहुत यानी एक्सेलरेट हुई फास्ट ट्रैक में वो रिटेल था। चूँकि रिटेल कैसे फौरी तौर पे कॉन्टेक्ट लेस में गया है। चूँकि मैं एप्पल यूज़र हूँ तो मैं जो ही लैंड हुआ तो मेरी जो मैकबुक है इसका उसमें वो कोई फ्लिकरिंग आ गई, तो आई नीड, इट वाज अ न्यू मशीन सो आई नीड टू गो टू द एप्पल स्टोर। तो पता चला कि सारे एप्पल स्टोर जो है यूएसए में ये बंद है, और ये उस वक्त से लेके अब तक बंद है। लिहाजा ये कैसे इन्होंने सारी जो यानी आप कह रहे हैं लाइफ साइकिल है कस्टमर एक्सपीरियंस का, इसको इन्होंने मैनेज किया कॉन्टेक्ट लेस में, ये बहुत मेरे लिए इन इम्पोर्टेंट लर्निंग थी। आई थिंक दैट वाज आल्सो समथिंग।
Thank you so much. And I see Ehsan Jamil has joined us. Ehsan, you are a testament to what patience is all about. You've been in the waiting room for the longest time. You're on mute, so if you can, yeah. What we did was brief introduction of yourself and then your take on what this crisis is, because the theme is Reframe the Crisis.
Right. So I am currently the CEO of PICG, which is the Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance. I've just joined them about a month ago. My background is one in which I've worked in different commercial organizations. I set up a public listed company, and then I helped set up the Amma Foundation, so the not-for-profit. And so I bring a combination of commercial and not-for-profit experiences of about 32 years, including some multinational stints at Unilever and Chase Manhattan Bank. So very happy to meet all of you and speak on the issue today, which is Reframe the Crisis. Would you like me, Leon, to talk a few minutes on that?
Yes, please. Yes, please, because the others have had a chance to share their input.
Okay, so not knowing what everybody said, I just wanted to think. I think about the crisis as a teacher, and as Rumi says, it is the cracks that let in the light, and certainly it is a teacher, and it's a tough teacher, this COVID, and but nothing focuses the mind like knowing you're going to hang tomorrow. So the fear of death that sort of has been lingering in so many of our environments as we've been through the last 4 or 5 months has given us a lot of time for real reflection and deep reflection. And so I'd like to think there's a bunch of silver linings if we pay heed to the lessons that are on offer. And I'd like to take 3 of those lessons and takeaways and share with you today. Number one is the you think of the importance of that in the context of what we've right now come up against, the pandemic, which is something that really, when disasters hit you, it's not an event that's happening all the time. So you do need to have long-term thinking, and you need to be cognizant of risk. And if you look at the context in which we've been struck by this pandemic, it is whether it's business or whether it's government, there's a lot of short-term thinking. There isn't long-term thinking. Your quarterly results, your annual results, the government's policies, etc., they lack a certain sense of consistency. So I think one of the lessons from the COVID experience I take is leadership has to be thinking more about longer term plans, and that needs to be incentivized for business. And so that's one point. The other point, more practical and perhaps more down to earth, is the importance of public health. So public health, again, is something that can give you medium-term results and short-term results. But it's certainly, if you look at it from a corporate perspective, health and safety. And one of the very exciting focuses has been mental health. So as we've all lived at home in different circumstances, some of us have probably experienced some level of loopiness in the course of all of this happening. And, so I feel like health and safety has got to be a very, very important focus for us going forward. And we as businesses and business managers need to take that very, very seriously. We've had factories burning down. We have issues of minimum wage versus standard of living wage. Some of this sounds a bit theoretical, but these are directions we have to take, because we don't actually account for the costs that we're incurring when we don't do these things. And my third point is really about, since pandemics, experts say, will continue to haunt us. We are a planet which has, it was only in 1812 that we were 1 billion people on planet Earth for the first time. And 200 years later, we are 7.5 billion people. So the whole approach to environment and how we conduct things has to be rethought. And this great movement, on the environment, which is a place of, it sort of converges global interest and brings us to a point of shared concern.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ehsan. We have 4 minutes left. I'm sorry.
Certainly, COVID makes a great case for us taking this warning.
Okay, Amir Saab, would you like to say anything before we move on, because we just have 4 minutes left.
Leon, just wanted to build on excellent points made by Naheed in terms of behaviors. The 4 behaviors that come to the fore in terms of leadership clearly do include accountability. The second one is collaboration. And the third is transparency. And the fourth is the willingness to take a stretch.
Yep. Neville, you keep coming in and out. There was a question for you, which it says leadership to move out of the crisis. What is the one main thing leaders need to move out of the crisis mode to bring in control?
Well, thanks for the question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, there's lots of things that leaders should do, but I think the first thing is look in the mirror. Start behaving as if you are a leader. Start behaving like a leader. Start taking action, making decisions. I have no idea what decisions you should be making because it's your business. But the point is, assess where you are, raise your voice, and then take action. And make sure that the
Okay, seems to be that technology is getting the best of us. I'd just like to sum up a few of the points that have been made, and I think context is everything. Wali, you brought up the point that what China was able to do, other countries have not been able to do, and we can see that. The issues in our personal lives, in our professional lives, in the countries that we work in, are all very different, so our approaches are going to be different. There is no one leadership style that can apply, and we have to be adapting, changing, and growing at every step of the way, which means actually looking out, maybe looking at what other people are doing, and seeing what is the best for each one of us. I'd like to thank you all for your participation and for your words of wisdom. I hope the audience got what it is that they were looking to get out of it. And say thank you very much, and have a great week ahead, and life ahead, actually.
Cheerio, everybody.
everybody, it's Ahmad Rizvi. A brief introduction. I am in the business of migrating people from the preoccupation of doing to an expression of being, thus enabling a boost in levels of performance within and outside of organizations. Now with that, I am extremely excited to share the platform with many thought leaders from around the world at the digital inauguration of LearnFest 2020, which of course is hosted and organized by Trainers Resource Group. And that's taking place between August 10th and 15th. Now this Festival of Learning could not have come at a better time. And I say this because we have migrated from a state of chaos at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic to that of confusion. In that we are now asking and challenging ourselves, what can we do to get back on track? Now great learning comes with great responsibility. And that responsibility is for us to own ourselves. It is to be accountable for the results that we are currently experiencing. Which brings me to LearnFest. If you haven't already, then I suggest you visit www.trg.org.pk to 1. Discover the vast array of opportunities that you will learn, and 2. To register. I can with confidence say that you will not regret it. With that, let me also express that I will be conducting a session on coaching for growth, which is on the third day, August 12th, from 10 p.m. to 10:45 p.m., where you'll get a flavor of how to create impact not only for yourself, but for your business, the organization you are with, or the community that you serve. There is one requirement though, and that is to bring an open mind. So again, take a moment to visit trg.org.pk and register. Until we meet, live with passion and drive with purpose.
Hey everyone, Sadin Shah here, inviting you to Persuasion Games, my virtual workshop taking place during the upcoming Digital LearnFest 2020. Join me and others as we explore some highly intriguing linguistic and psychological ploys used by master persuaders to influence our behavior every single day. We will also be playing some highly interesting mind games from my corporate entertainment show, Mysteries Within. Will I be able to persuade you to do what I want? Or will you be able to see through my tactics and resist them? We'll find out on Thursday, August 13th. Head over now to trg.org.pk and register for this session.
Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Nahid Chaudhry and I am the CEO of I Will Global Consulting. My collaborative partners Bronwyn, Alana and I are looking forward to seeing you at the Digital Improv section of the LearnFest being presented by www.trg.org.pk on Monday the 10th August at 10 o'clock at night. We'll be sharing some fantastic corporate improv tools and we'll be sharing them for HR professionals, for corporates as well as for coaches and trainers. And the advantages that corporate improv can bring you are tremendous, particularly when engagement is a little more difficult in a virtual world of training and coaching. So do join us and we're looking forward to seeing you there.
Hi, my name is Bronwyn Burns and I'm a corporate trainer here in Dubai. One of the best things I ever did for corporate training was to learn improvisation. And improv, we're doing it every day. We're doing it in our everyday life. But really there are some fantastic techniques you can learn to help you think on the spot and speak on the spot within your corporate training or coaching. So please join us this August 10th, coming up on Monday, 2200 hours PST. You can register for this training at www.trg.org.pk, and I look forward to bringing you some of the secrets of improv.
Hi, this is Umar Khan, and I'm the founder of Activate. In these uncertain times, while we find ourselves overwhelmed by these infinite questions, it is imperative to know what problems to focus on. Knowing what to solve is the key to getting the desired results. Join me at the TRG's LearnFest 2020. Register yourself at trg.org.pk. See you there.
Hello everyone, I am Shahzeb Ul Mulk from Pakistan Society for Training and Development, and I'm here to talk about LearnFest Digital 2020. PSTD is a learning partner with TRG for LearnFest 2020, and as its name suggests, it's going to be a festival for anyone who is passionate to learn. As always, PSTD is going to bring to you renowned experts from the industry for an exciting panel discussion and a debate. Our experts will be from the IT, banking and telecom industry, and as a bonus, we'll be having our experts from UAE talking about wellness in the corporate world. So what are you waiting for? Register yourself now and join us in this exciting festival. Thank you.
Hi guys, this is Max Babri, and I am wonderful. And I'll catch you all the wonderful people on the 9th, or is it on the 11th? On the 11th, it's Tuesday at 10:30 at the TRG LearnFest. And you know, TRG is a remarkable organization, and I've known all the senior people in TRG for a very, very long time. And they're especially kind and positive towards me, invite me to everything. And I try to shy away, and I say, no, I don't want to do it this time. I don't want to be there. But they unleashed Umair Jalianwala on me this time, and he's such a convincing person that I had no choice but to accept. And of course, I love a lot of people, and I love, you know, the big boss and Kamran and Shireen and Fakia and all these are my special friends, and I have great fraternity with it, and all the other people that are participating in this event. So I'll catch you on Tuesday at 10 p.m. at TRG, and I'll help you understand how wonderful you really are. And you are remarkable. Looking forward to see you guys. Take care. Bye.
Hi, this is Anam Sethi, trainer at Activate, and I'm excited to join TRG engagements be just as fun and exciting as in-person engagements? And I tell them, at Activate we believe that digital engagements may be different, but they can be just as valuable as any other learning experience. Join me on my demo, LearnFest 2020. Register at trg.org.bk. I'll see you there.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Sunil Gupta, and I will be so happy to represent learning minds and ideas management consultants at the upcoming LearnFest. And my presentation is scheduled for 13th of August, and I will be speaking in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. The topic is Agile. So how to have an agile organization, how to have agile thinking. I look forward to seeing all of you there. Thank you. Take care.
Hi, my name is Bronwyn.
Assalamualaikum friends, this is Kaisar Abbas and I'm super excited to be part of this LearnFest 2020. I will be delivering a very special keynote session on the 14th of August, which is also Pakistan's Independence Day, and my session starts at 10:15 in the morning. My topic is something I'm very passionate about, something I've been developing for the past many years and trying and testing with many organizations around the globe. The topic is speed coaching, and this also is the title of my upcoming book, and the book's foreword has been written by the world's #1 executive coach, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. I'm extremely excited to be able to co-create a powerful learning experience with each one of you, and are you ready for it?
Stress shows itself in many different ways and forms. Some people lose their temper really quickly, others worry too much, and for some it translates into completely shutting down. However, there are people who don't get angry or worried or lose hope in the face of difficulties. It's not that they have some magical powers. It's just that they have a very different story going on in their head than us. Stress is not about external. It's about how we approach different tasks and challenges, which means it is entirely controllable. I'm Ali Syed, and I will be talking about stress and some ways to overcome it at the TRG LearnFest on the 10th of August. I look forward to seeing all of you there.
The beauty of the management world is that it keeps evolving. Some of the concepts which were alien to us a few years back now are part and parcel of our life. And one such word is coaching. What is coaching? What is it about? Is it the same as training? Does it really work? Does coaching mean I have some problem? Is it the same as therapy and counseling? If you have any such questions, come and explore the answers with me in TRG LearnFest Day 2, and the program is Coaching for Excellence. We will talk about science and art of coaching. So I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Living in critical times of fundamental change. My name is Dr. Cedric Emil Edwin, and I'm a design thinker and growth hacker. I'm also the chairman of Department of Management Sciences, CCOS University, and I will be presenting you an exciting session on reframing the crisis, a design thinking approach at the TRG LearnFest Digital 2020. Design thinking is a tool that helps students, professionals, and entrepreneurs of all fields in solving problems and managing crises in critical situations. Please join me live at 3 p.m. on 10th August 2020 to learn about reframing crisis using the design thinking approach. Please register at trg.org. The link is in the description below. This problem solving and crisis management tool will help you throughout your career. Design thinking as a tool is being used by leading companies like Apple, Google, Amazon, Airbnb, and several others to solve big problems in critical situations. Don't miss this wonderful opportunity to learn about this remarkable methodology. Whether you are a student or an entrepreneur, an employee or an employer of an SME or a multinational, if you're going through crisis, this session is for you. Thank you.
Don't miss this exciting opportunity to learn at Pakistan's first learning festival.
Do you understand the difference between disability and being differently able?
All about learning with fun. Simply because this is for the first time we, the trainers, are paying for you to come and get trained. Jeete raho.
Be a change agent.
Learning is unlimited.
At LearnFest,
turn yourself on.
Get ready for a series of highly.
It is said, when the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. And one size does not necessarily fit all. Designing your digital transformation, but is it human-centric? Great technology, but does it even address the needs, pain points, and emotional experience of your users, customers, and even employees? Hi, my name is Noman Nasrullah from Funworks Global. Join me in my program, An Introduction to Human-Centered Design, where we would discuss your digital strategy, but through a human-centered lens, using design thinking principles. See you there.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Dr. Samra Javed from Institute of Business Management, and I'll be attending this 6-day digital LearnFest organized by TRG. And I'm really excited to be part of the amazing learning opportunity that we provide, and particularly focusing on learning in crisis. And also I'll be presenting a session on the August 13th, which is going to focus on, it's a workshop that'll teach you how to use assertive communication. Assertive communication is actually respecting your rights, express your rights, and stand up for your own rights, while also taking care of other people's rights. It's a boost to your self-esteem, and it really helps you in difficult situations, especially in saying no. Thank you so much. Looking forward to see you, inshallah.
everybody. I am here joining you at LearnFest and really, really excited to meet you all virtually. Sorry that I can't be here. I am calling in from Sydney in Australia and wish I was there and hope that you are all well under these trying times. So I'm really, really excited and honoured to be here. Thank you, Oktara, exactly, through the wonderful team at Oktara, and also for the LearnFest team for bringing this all together. This seems such an exciting program, and I'm honoured to be contributing to it. So thank you for having me. So I'm a voice coach, and I work with organisations and leaders all around the world. And what I do with them is help them find their voice and stay in voice, particularly under pressure, and particularly where the stakes are really high and where there's pushback or difficulty in communication. How do you stay present in the room and have your voice heard? So that's the frame of what we'll be talking about today. And the content obviously is delivering your voice of leadership and influence in uncertain times. So that's the angle that we're going to be taking. I will be asking you to talk to me via the comments chat box, which I understand is on the right-hand panel of your screen, but I think you've all been using that really well already. So could I test that out? I'd love to know if you're there, firstly, because I'm used to doing very practical, interactive sessions and having people talk back with me, and we have a chat vocally and in person, but I would love to know if you're actually there. So my question for you all at this point is, what's the best thing that's come out of COVID for you? What's one of the golden silver linings that's happened for you? And if you are there, throw your ideas into the comments box and I would love to see them. Then I can read out and I can talk with you about what's been going on for me as well. So I know that for me, one of the great silver linings is that I can spend some more time at home with my mum, my family, and my daughter gets to see me a little bit more. But I'm sure that you all have some great chat and comments in there. You might just be joining on as you come into the session. So thank you. Thank you very much. Learning new technology. Hey, thank you. Is it Jeveria? Thank you very much. Learning new technology. Thank you, because guess what? I'm doing the same thing. And in fact, I've pivoted my whole business. Pivot is the word of the month, isn't it? Or the half year. My whole business to be digital. So I'm doing a lot of these digital webinars. So thank you very much. I would love you to comment as we go through, because this session is going to be most effective if you take this personally. I'm going to be asking you personal questions about your voice, your interactions, your ability to step in difficult conversations. Now, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're a leader and a senior leader in an organization, whether you're a graduate that's just come out of university or school, or whether you're running your own show, voice is voice. It's what we'll do today will be helpful for all of you, because we all need to step in and have difficult conversations and to be able to influence up and sideways and below. And that's the terrain. Okay, so let's jump into it. And Hamad, I think you are running my slides today. I can't see those slides right now, but I would love you to flip to the next slide. Thank you very much. The one after the yellow one. Thank you, great. So your voice of leadership in uncertain times. We're going to cover 4 concepts, not 5, 4 concepts for you today. And could you just jump onto the first one for me, Hamad? We're going to firstly talk about your voice story. Sorry, the next slide on, Hamad. Thanks. Oh, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. We'll do the 4 all in one go. There we go. Brilliant. So this is our agenda. Let's look at your voice story. There's no point in me just talking to you about how to use volume or pitch or inflection. That's not the work that I do. I'm really interested in how your voice comes through you and from you, and that is your history, your ancestry, and your experiences in life. And how you enter into an exchange with someone will be influenced by that. context. So I'd love to start talking with you about your voice story. And I am going to get personal. Javaria, it looks like you and I are the only ones having a conversation right now, so it might be just you and me getting a bit personal here and talking about your voice story. But if others can join on and jump on the chat box and we can have a chat back and forth about some questions that I will ask, I would absolutely love that. The next topic is, we've just lost the slides for a second, but the next topic is your voice of leadership. So how do you step in and have your voice as a leader? And then I thought I'd give you some practical tools. So particularly in, oh, hello, Amir, I love it. I'd love to work on your voice too. Let's do that, shall we? Let's do two practical things. Now, because we're on this technology, there's a whole new set of rules. So I want to talk to you about how you set the rules and you set the tone in digital communications. And there's two subheadings there: empowering the conch, I'll explain that later, and discerning your voice or discerning others' voices. So they're going to be your master strokes when you're having those difficult conversations digitally, virtually. And finally, to give you some technique on how to speak up. Hello, Amber. Dr. Amber, I love it. I'm here too. I love it. Thank you very much. Could you all just write, anybody who's there, could you write in the chat box which city you're in? Where are you situated? I'm in Sydney. In fact, if anyone knows Bondi or Bondi Rescue, the TV show, if you get it over there, it's about people being saved from with lifesavers out on the surf. That's where I live. So I'd love to know where you're calling and dialing in from. So pop that in the chat box. Hooray, Amer in Lahore. I've been to Lahore with wonderful Oktara. Thank you, Amer. It's such a beautiful city, and I wish I was there to hang out. Karachi, beautiful. Yes, I'm sure there's quite a few of you in Karachi as well. Oh, some new comments. Golly, I'm not even finding all these wonderful. Here we go. New Karachi. Fabulous. Amber, I think we've met before, haven't we? Anyway, we'll talk later. Okay, so let's get on to your voice story. So Hamad, would you mind jumping on to the next slide for me? And let's talk about that. I have been working in voice for 17 years, and I've done a lot of individual coaching and team coaching for organizations and keynotes. And I have had a catalogue, like this book, a catalogue of stories in my life. Islamabad, hello, Bismillah, lovely to meet you. I've got a catalogue of stories about voice that I have heard through the years, and some are really telling for me, and I feel deeply humbled as a voice coach to be hearing people's deep personal stories about their voice. I do want to start with one story that I think will be useful for you as a context for where we're going, and I'd like you to think about, how does this reflect or shine a mirror on your voice story? So many years ago, I worked with a woman who very, very smart in an actuarial firm, and she was in a very senior leadership, and she was asked to speak in at board level. And she would step into an all-male boardroom and, as a woman, step in and have to deliver her, her content report work that she'd been working on. Very, very technical work. She would be delivering that to the board. And she could not get her voice heard. She had all the technological expertise. She had all the skills technically, but when she got to speak at the board level, which was a huge positional, career positional move for her, she was unable to influence. And her CEO rang me and he said to me, look, I'd really like you to work with Pauline because she actually comes across as very mousy. And I thought, well, that's an interesting comment on a voice, is that it's small and quiet and squeaky and like a little mouse, probably shy and scuttles away when she gets threatened. So I got together with Pauline and she was so interesting. We did about 6 sessions, 1-hour sessions together, and she presented with a very light voice. So if you can hear, I've come off the core resonance of my sound. She kind of came off her voice a little bit, so she's quite light in her voice. And she also had her head tilted to the side a bit in an apologetic kind of way. Actually, it's easy for me to do that in an apologetic way. And so that there was this sense of, from an animalist perspective, I'm about to roll over and submit, right? So she was really playing the underdog, the mouse at the table. It appeared to me very quickly, she was fiercely smart and had a fiercely independent, strong personality, feisty personality. But none of that was coming across in her delivery. And she told me, as we went through the sessions, that when she was young and she grew up in England, the culture around her was that little girls should be seen and not heard. And so she had evolved some survival mechanisms to manage her voice to fit with her community. That is, not to be too aggressive, not to be too loud, not to be too bold, and not to communicate her fierce intelligence. So she had suppressed that, and she had to do that to stay safe inside her community. And so then that was when she was a teenager, and she was then 50 when I was working, in her 50s when I was working with her, and she still had those habits. They were psychological, emotional, and physical habits about her voice. So we worked on freeing that up. We got her head back onto her body, and we found some more vibration and resonance in her voice so that she could demonstrate the size and significance of her and her intellect at the table, when it was an interesting mix, primal mix of bold, strong personalities in the room. So she went back and she did all of that, and then a week later I got a phone call from her CEO saying, well, thank you very much for, yes, that's right, I could see myself in Pauline. I agree, I know there's many Paulines out there. Her CEO rang me a week later and said, look, thanks so much for doing what you did with Pauline, but today at work she made someone cry. And I kind of secretly loved that. So, she was wielding a new toy and she was trying out something new, and the people around her weren't used to that. So she changed the paradigm. She changed her cultured voice, her civilized voice. And she also changed her position in the room and with the people around her. So it brings this story, the story brings together, yes, it's a funny story, I love that one. It brings together the two concepts of voice, which is literal sound of voice and how you get position with your voice, your positional voice. And when your voice has got a cultured, civilized habits and contractions around it, then it isn't free to do what we are naturally supposed to do, which is express ourselves and our needs immediately. So my question really for all of you is to think about your voice story. And we don't have time here, obviously, but honestly, I would love to talk with any of you afterwards if you want to dig into your voice story and understand how certain scenarios in your life have affected your right to speak, or your sense of taking up people's time. Do you feel compromised when you're in front of someone more senior than you and you're taking their time? Do you feel that you're uncertain about how people hear you, and so you navigate and you try and pussyfoot, or is that a phrase you use over there, or make it sweet in order to sugarcoat it so that it lands properly? Do any of the scenarios in your life, has that affected your relationship with your right to speak? Everyone has a right to speak, and my whole premise of my business is your voice is your birthright. You were born with a voice that is designed to express your needs. Does anyone have a baby in there? Can you just check, put on your, in the chat, does anyone have a baby in their life? And if so, how old? I want to see how old the babies are in this world or around you. Do you know you have nieces or nephews? I have an 8-year-old. Does anyone have a younger than 8-year-old? Surely there must be someone out there. Do you know, if you have a baby out there, you have all heard babies, I know that. Yes, 18 months, all right, Amer says 18 months. Farhan, tell me any younger than that. If there's anyone younger than 18 months, let's talk about it. Oh, same, 18 months. Oh, that's 18 months, Amer. 5 years old, 2 years old baby. Yes, okay, good. 18 months seems to be the one we're going for, Amer. It might be you. 7-year-old, 2-year-old. Yeah, terrific. We all know, you know. And if you haven't got kids, then you have heard them. And that's the most important thing. And Amer, tell me, if you can, in the chat. I'm chatting to Amer right now, who's got the 18-month-old. How would you describe your, not quite baby anymore, really, how would you describe your baby's voice? That's the big question, because we've all heard the voices of babies, and they're quite extreme, aren't they? And there's an extensiveness of high-pitched sounds that only dolphins can hear. I mean, it's incredible. And then the deep, gurgly little moans and groans, this extraordinary texture in voice. Amer says loud. Beautiful, right? So we've got loud and sweet and gooey at the same time, and mumsy and soft. So you can probably, Amer, be 2 houses down and still hear your child's voice. So the voice is designed to influence, to grab the attention of people around you. Now, not just your intellectual attention, but actually your visceral attention that is in your organs. You are moved in your skin. It's designed to make your skin crawl, or your spine tingle, or your teeth grit and tingle, because voice is made of vibration. Now, that is the truest form of influence. And that's why when Pauline was able to speak on her full sound, she affected people. So your voice is designed to affect and influence, as a baby's is. So you were all babies once. This is the really wonderful thing. You all of you, no matter what your voice story is, have access to that. You were born with that free, expressive, influential voice before words. Before words. And then what happens over time, because of our voice story, is that that voice gets crafted and civilized and contracted psychologically, emotionally, and physically, so that our innate expressivity, I feel something, I express it, gets contracted. Now, it is around 2 years. I'm just seeing the people here who've got 2, 3-year-old children here. Bismillah, Maria, Kudsia, apologies if I'm not pronouncing your names. I'm trying my best. You will know that it's around 2 where that testing starts to happen of the boundaries. And so you will hear the voice coming out, and then you will start to, as a caregiver, give them signals on how to be civilized with their voice. Don't do that in here. Speak softly. Little boys should use their man voice. Use your inside voice. Use your outside voice. You little girls should be seen and not heard. In Australia, we have this dreadful one, which is for boys, toughen up, princess. That's awful. So we've got these psychological and emotional, physical indicators to civilize our voices. But we do need to learn how to civilize the voice. Because otherwise, I mean, imagine if you're in a meeting with a senior stakeholder and you feel something and you want to just, wah, and you want to express it out. You can't do that. It would be fun. I kind of do a little bit of that these days because I feel okay about it, but we can't really do that. So I want you to think about your voice story and where are the significant milestones in your life where your voice has been questioned. Maybe it's been endorsed. Maybe you've had great successes with your voice, and maybe you've been compromised or subjugated or restricted. That's your voice story, and to have a real consciousness about that will help you understand where we're going to go next, which is to your voice of leadership, and then how do you hold presence and gravitas in uncertain times and under duress, under stress. So can I get a little bit more personal with you now? And Hamad, if you wouldn't mind, please jumping to the next slide for me. And I am going to ask a question of everybody. So get your typing fingers going. Jump onto the next little animation, Hamad, please. And the question is, from the past month, I'd like you to think of a difficult or high-stakes spoken exchange where you were expected to be a voice of influence. Okay, so and preferably something in work, but if not, that's fine. It can be personal. And then, Hamad, just click to the next question. The question is, how was your voice in that? How would you describe your voice at that point? So if you could type that in, it can stay private if you want, but I just love to know, how would you describe your voice? In fact, Hamad, jump to the next slide, and we can see there's some words there that they might want to choose from. In the past month, a difficult, high-stakes exchange, maybe it was emotional, maybe you were speaking to someone more senior than you, maybe you were dealing with some really difficult technical information, maybe people were pushing back and not listening to you. So great, I'd love to hear how you would describe your voice. So maybe submissive. I wanted to have a deep voice, but it was shrinking. Oh, I like that, shrinking, great. Funny, I'm wondering if, Sheroz, you're talking about your voice was funny, or was that something earlier? I'm not sure. Any other thoughts would be terrific. Great, so you're all, and I'm just gonna say, I am at home, I'm working from home as COVID. I have my dog here, so you will hear my dog barking, just keeping it very real right now. Can't do anything about it. And my daughter is downstairs, so who knows what's going to happen. Great. I have had to use a lot of empathy in my voice for my students, even when I didn't want to. I love it. Yes, terrific. So I feel for you. Submissive voice, great. So we will have a way to describe your voice. And really the next question is, how would you like your voice to have been? How would you like your voice to have been? If you didn't really if you didn't really succeed in that past month, what could you have done better with your voice or differently? How would you like your voice to have been? Type that in, I'd love to know. Great, someone's just said here that their voice was convincing. Super, that's really exciting, and I'd love to know what you were doing with your voice. Was it that you were being bold? Were you being committed? What were you doing with it? Great. I mean, you'd love it to have been deeper or deep. Uzma says submissive as well. Submissive is an interesting word, isn't it? So that suggests that there's power at stake. And I'm really interested in this. If we had a whole day session, we could get right into that. Is the primal behaviors that happen between people when there's power at stake. And I'll tell you what, in business, that's what's at stake. Power and money. If we get really brutal and blunt about it, power and money is what often it boils down to. And particularly when you're jockeying for position in a room, it's to do with someone wanting to keep power. And that's to do with voice. Voice is power. And if you can establish your power through your voice by saying, I'm still here, I'm in the room, I'm holding my position through demonstrating I've got a voice, then you are staying in the power game. Now, I'm not saying power is a bad thing necessarily, because that's essentially what we're doing in business. Terrific. So there's some lovely things coming in, persuasive and authoritative with empathy. Yes, that would be lovely. I would love that too often. So the conundrum is that, thank you, Hamad. Maybe if we jump through to the next slide, that would be super. Just bumping on. Great, keep going, please, for me, Hamad. He's being my super helpful assistant. Next one would be good. The next one, there we go, great. So here is something I found on LinkedIn a while ago, and I still use it because I think it's so pertinent. The biggest concern for any organization or culture, actually, these days, particularly in a world of Black Lives Matter and Me Too, any culture should be when their most passionate or capable people become quiet. So my question for you in this is that you? Are there people around you that happens to? Are there people in your team that you notice that happens to, where there's capability being lost? Are there people in your organization or in your culture around you where that's happening and it shouldn't be? Your job as a leader is to facilitate voice. Oh, that's so eloquent. Your job as a leader is to facilitate voice. Certainly these days, and in our global culture, that's what it's about. And if you can be conscious of the people around you and how voice is used, then that's your stepping stone to facilitating voice, facilitating others' voices. If things aren't working in your favor and no one is listening, Maria, let's get there, right? Let's work out how to get your voice on the table. Terrific. So, Hamad, could you jump to the next slide, please? And we'll step into this thing of your voice of leadership. Hina, I'm just going to read this out so I can make sense. Great. During a Zoom meeting session, there was a meeting going on and my voice was aggressive and loud to make people get my point. Yes, Zoom, things happen differently, don't they? Don't they? So we're going to talk about that in a little while. Intrapreneurship isn't, I'm not sure what you're referring to, Safian, but I would love to know that, and we can probably talk offline about that if you'd like to. I'd like to jump into a voice of leadership. So for you to start thinking about how you can step in with a voice of leadership into a high stakes or uncertain conversation, uncertain times, we need to look at how the voice works. So Hamad, get your finger on the button because I'm going to ask you to bump through these quite quickly. Exactly. The voice doesn't start in your throat, which is where most people think it starts. It actually starts in your belly. It starts with a need, like the baby. A baby has a need. It has suddenly a need. It's hungry. The hunger sends a message through its brain to its muscles to do with breathing and voice. Breath comes in, out the sound comes with the breath, and out it comes. And there it calls its hunger. So it starts in the belly. And it's important for you to understand that because, you know, like someone said earlier, whatever's going on internally needs to find a voice. If you have that internal chat talking and you're not able to articulate it, then it will leak out in other ways. So we've got to listen very clearly to what's going on in your inner voice, your inner fire. That inner fire in an ideal world finds, and Hamad, go for a click, finds its way through your feelings center. Your feelings are an important part of communication. And then the next one, please, Hamad. And then ultimately through the larynx and out to the wider world. Click to the next one, to your apparently, the next one please, adoring audience, right? So we all desire our audience to be adoring and happy about what we're saying, but often they're not. Often they come with their voice stories as well. And your audience has white noise, other thoughts going through their head. They're not there saying, okay, I'm completely empty and waiting to hear what you're saying. They've got a lot of their own story going on about, they have their own biases about how you sound, what you look like, their own right to be there or to hear. So they've got their own unconscious and probably conscious biases about what you're saying and who you are. So you could have this very inspiring idea and be in love with it and communicate it out, and it's filled with the fire from within. But we actually have to get your audience listening first. The way to do that is to move through, if you could just go through these next 7 clicks, Hamad, on those colors there. Use best tone and words to convey his voice. Right, that sounds good. Gary V does that. That's excellent. Okay, so in order to get your audience on side and to carve space for your voice to be heard, there's no point in knocking up against a big elephant. You know, we want to call the elephant in the room. Ways of carving that space for your voice to be heard is to really understand that you have to own your content, own and believe and have an authority about what you're saying. Be the author of your ideas. And sure, you can write them down on a piece of paper, but the work actually is in the authority of how you feel about it. Shakespeare says, speak what we feel, not what we ought to say. The feeling is the thing that fires the breath, actually. So if you've got real ownership and authority in your ideas, then that will fuel the speaking. Suddenly the message is spoken and you're a conduit for it simply. The message finds its way out if it's got a fire and if you really own it. You must also consider the permission in the room. So for Pauline, back in my story right at the beginning, she had permission because she was invited in to give a 10-minute update on her project at the board. She had permission on paper, but actually what happened in the room was there were more alpha positioning, jockeying going on between some of the players. And even though she had her 10 minutes, they really weren't interested in her because they were trying to vie for attention amongst themselves. So your job is really to find where the permission is and carve the permission out. Or certainly if you're not getting it in the room, to say, excuse me, I need to ask for permission here. Someone asked earlier, how do you carve that space? One little technique you might want to consider is know who the person with the most power is in the room. It's not necessarily the chairman or the person who's invited you to the meeting. Know who the person with the most power is. Look, if you want to cut in or someone's cut you off and you want to come back in, you look straight in the eye of the person with the, or you look to the person with the power and you physically move in that direction. Now, whether it's direct with your hand like that or just a suggestion leaning forward, or maybe it's an angling of your body. So you're indicating to the person with the power, you need to give me the power now. And then ask them, you're looking over to them, I would like to speak now, please, could I? And you're literally asking for permission. So that's one way of cutting in. Of course, you need to have vision and your passion will come through. Elevating your message is something that we would talk on if we were doing speech writing and crafting, which we're not going to do now, but you can look at a Martin Luther King or any of the great speeches for that. And ultimately, your resonance will come from that. So that's how you get your audience resonating with you, is having those foundational elements underneath. Thanks. Jump to the next slide for me, Hamad, please. And we'll see what we've got now. I do have a beautiful quote, which I did want to leave with you. I think that you may like this. For those of you who know The Little Prince, Antoine Saint-Exupéry, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. Give them something that gets them engaged with what they want, something they can invest in, something they believe in. And then you fill it in with your information afterwards. So you flip it around. Get them engaged with what they believe in first. For those of you who haven't looked at Simon Sinek's TED Talks, S-I-N-E-K, Simon S-I-N-E-K, then jump on any of his and he will talk to you about putting that why people listen first. That's something to consider. Okay, let's jump on and do a little bit of practical work. Thanks, Hamad. Let's go jump to the next slide, please. I've got them here in front of me. I want to talk about setting the rules. Now, as we know, technology has really thrown a spanner in the works and it's making it, it's a whole new set of rules about how you use voice. Just a moment. Me talking for 45 minutes is really thirsty work. So let's talk about how this works. When you're, does anyone know where this picture's from? Does anyone recognize this movie? It's from well, it's actually a book originally, William Golding's Lord of the Flies. And it's also a play and a movie now. In this, and I have this picture here for a reason, because when you're talking about, if you're going to be a voice of leadership in a team or with people where you want to assert your capability, we need to look at how people are taking turns. And your job as a leader in that, and even if you're not the leader, what's lovely about this COVID time for me is it's broken the rules a bit. There's a lot of rule breaking about how we should professionally do things. Do you know, like my dog's in the background and I can wear my tracksuit pants underneath, you know, those sorts of things. So it's the same with the rules. you don't have to be the leader in order to set some of the rules. And often if you feel things aren't going the way that you like, then you have a right to step in and say, I would like to set a rule here or set a precedent here for how we do things around here vocally. Just so I know everyone's there, does anyone know, has anyone seen Lord of the Flies? Just type in the chat box so I know whether you're with me or not, or whether I'm sounding crazy. Lord of the Flies is a fabulous book because it talks about a group of boys who get shot down in a World War II plane. They're on a school trip and the boys land on a deserted island and there's no parents around and no adults and they have to survive. So it's a pecking order conversation. Not yet. Good, Amer. It's a really good one to put on your list. What happens is that as the humans, it's an investigation into how humans work in terms of position and voice. And one of the little boys very quickly picks up this conch shell that Jack is using here and says this shell is the conch shell and it indicates who has the right to speak. So when they're having a meeting and trying to work out who's going to get the food and where we're going to sleep and who's the boss, the person with the conch gets the right to speak. So it's an excellent metaphor for you all in your meetings. And I'd love you to know, I'd love you to start thinking even now, when you're in your family even, or in difficult exchanges, and definitely in your organizations or in your university lectures or however it works, who has the conch? And how is the conch being used? Does the person who has the conch, do they share it? Do they hoard it and keep it? Do they protect it? Are they mean about it? Are they generous about it? Do they share the conch around? Are they not scared of it? Are they attached to it? Do they throw it at you? Do they steal it off you? How is the conch used? Because if you can start observing that, you have a really deep insight into how people respect position and voice. And then you can work out how to have a voice with them. So the idea is if you can start tuning into the way voice is taken, then you can start changing some of the habits of your culture around you. Now, if you are a leader in your organization, then you start to decide. I would love you to set the rules up front before your meetings on Zoom or WebEx or whatever you're doing. What are the rules of voice here? And are we going to follow an agenda? And if not, then how are you going to share the conch? And if someone steals the conch, how are you going to respectfully say, you just stole the conch, now you need to hand it back again? So you do need to set up some language around that. I know in the Obama campaign, and I think also in the Clinton campaign, no, it wouldn't have been in Clinton, it was definitely in Obama, and in one of the Australian, I spoke to a very senior, Julie Bishop, a senior Australian politician who's just retired. She was saying in Australia as well, as well as the Obama campaign, the women set up a rule whenever there were meetings that if a man stole an idea from a woman and then got the credit for it, then another woman in that room would step in and say, excuse me, Harry, you just took the moment away from Jenny. I'd like Jenny to take it back again, and Jenny, you now have the floor. So they set up these great rules that allowed shared voice and shed light on unconscious behaviours that disallowed voice. So you might want to really consider how that's done. So that's one way of doing it. Then the next, I might just jump on to the next one. Also, I'd like you to, and the next one, I'd like you to listen to discerning, sorry, just go back a bit, discerning voice. Just to start listening to how people use their voice. What's the quality of voice? So, Amir, you just asked, can you share some habits of having persuasive voice? Let's get there. I certainly will do that. But the persuasiveness of voice actually comes down to, are you conscious of how other people are using voice so that you can then cut through their white noise? Often persuasion does not happen because there's too much other white noise going on in the room and you're competing for the conch. You can't persuade when you haven't got a platform. So the number one place to start for you, Amer, your question is to clear the platform. And the platform is about you saying to people, setting up the rules, or pushing back and saying that's not respectful or that's not appropriate, I can hear in your voice that you are distressed or upset or emotional. What then happens is they say, oh yes, and they acknowledge all of their content, the things that are disturbing them. Because once you clear that elephant in the room, then you can be persuasive. But you can't be persuasive if you've got all of that other white noise in front of you. So we're moving through towards actual practical work for persuasive voice, but it is about setting this tone, first of all, is discerning the quality of the voices that you're hearing around you. Now, if you're hearing a Pauline in the room who's got a mousy, quiet, retired voice and her head's cocked on the side and she's going quiet, then she's not going to be persuasive at all. And it's going to be difficult for you to be persuasive with her because you don't even know if she's engaged with you. So it's really about discerning how do you facilitate that voice into the room. And the question, the point with her is to gently say, Pauline, I know that you've done some great work on this. I would really love to see how you can, could you bring that into the room right now? So you're facilitating that. Thanks. Just jump forward, Hamad, to the next one if you don't mind. We've got 4 more minutes, I think. And I want to make sure that you've got these 4 things for us here. Just jump through these so that there's 4 things on the screen. Arrive, breathe, vibrate, and speak. To your question, Amer, how do we do this? There's the told you I couldn't get away from it. Shh. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to pick her up and quieten her down. 4 things, right? Arrive, breathe, vibrate, and speak. Just 1 second. If I didn't do that, this is keeping it real. Here she is. If I didn't do that, she would be talking and talking and talking to the new dogs in the neighborhood. Arrive, breathe, vibrate, speak. So arrive meaning being present in the room. You are physically arrived, but if your audience isn't arrived with you, then they won't be able to hear what you've got to say. Breathe is to take your time to breathe and allow space between your thoughts. Now, what often happens is people will race through. So that I've got 5 minutes, so I've got to quickly say, hello, how are you today? I've got to talk to you about voice, and my voice is going to, and the important bit that for you to understand, can you see how I'm racing? I'm racing. And often people will feel like they have to race to get to the end of their talk so they can get out of there and quickly, I don't want to do this anymore, and I don't want to know what my audience really thinks of me. So the idea is the arrive and breathe is really key to happen between every single thought. So Amer, when you're asking about technique for persuasion, I'd love you to consider, in fact, jump to the next slide for me, Hamad, and I'll give you a demonstration of how it works. So you've got a quote here. Sit down. You jump to the next one for me, Hamad. It is there. Are you there? Are you there? I'll read it. There it is. Okay, so here's a lovely quote for us, but I'm going to read it and I'm going to give you some arrive, breathe, vibrate, speak while I read it. So most people will just read through it. Our lives begin to end when about the day we become silent about the things that matter. You see, I'm zooming through that. As opposed to, I take my time and I land. I let my breath go. I listen to the dog barking. Sorry. And then I take a moment to connect with you. And then I say, I'm sorry, this is really terrible that the dog is barking. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. So I'm doing one thought at a time with a break in between. Because if I zoom through that, then I'm not going to have the impact and persuasion that I need. So it requires courage to do that. Yes, I know she's really annoying Amer as well. Okay, I know I've got 30 seconds left. What I would love you to do is jump to the next slide, Hamad. If you have any questions, please, I'm offering you 50% off my online masterclass, which is a steal, and I'm going to give it first 10 people who sign up for it. So it's only 400 Australian dollars. It's actually $2,000 worth, but I've bumped it right down. If you feel like you need to go further into this work, and there'll be more questions here than I can even answer, then jump on that. I'm going to give the first 10 people who sign up for that 30 minutes of my time for free, so we can get into your voice a bit. So jump on cornellvoiceonline.com and use the code VOICE50, and that will be your way into getting into the work a little more. If you want to email me, lucy@cornellvoice.com. And I think that's me, Hamad. Thank you all for your engagement and your conversations. It's lovely seeing you all. I wish I was there. Lots of love, and enjoy the rest of your LearnFest.
Hi, this is Umar Khan, and I'm the founder of Activate. In these uncertain times, while we find ourselves overwhelmed by these infinite questions, it is imperative to know what problems to focus on. Knowing what to solve is the key to getting the desired results. Join me at the TRG's LearnFest 2020 Register yourself at trg.org.pk. See you there.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. By now you must have already heard of the Trainers Resource Group Learning Festival Digital. मंडे से लेके सैटरडे तक पाकिस्तान भर के लिए और पाकिस्तान से बाहर के लोगों के लिए 100 से ज़्यादा मेरी इंडस्ट्री के ट्रेनर्स, कंसल्टेंट्स, स्पीकर्स, कोचेस और लर्निंग इनेबलर्स इकट्ठे हुए हैं जो बेशुमार लर्निंग सॉल्यूशंस ऑफर करते हैं ऑल ईयर राउंड. They've been working for decades, tremendous experiences getting together. ये प्रोग्राम ज़रूरी है अगर आप HR में इंटरेस्ट रखते हैं, HR से ताल्लुक़ रखते हैं, L&D पोजीशन पे हैं किसी इदारे में, ट्रेनर्स पिक करते हैं अपने इदारे के लिए, अपने इदारे को किसी और लेवल पे लेके जाना चाहते हैं और सॉल्यूशंस की तलाश में हैं. अगर आप स्मॉल बिजनेस हैं, दिस इज़ अ फैंटास्टिक अपॉर्चुनिटी. इफ़ यूर अ स्टूडेंट, आप अपने कैंपसेस पे गेस्ट स्पीकर्स बुलाते हैं, हमने सारे बुला लिए हैं, सारे इकट्ठे हैं. और अगर आप फुल इवेंट साइन अप करेंगे तो यू विल ऑल्सो हैव एक्सेस फॉर ऑल ईयर लॉन्ग. This is a brilliant opportunity. Take my word for it. Go to trg.org.pk right now and register. कल सुबह से शुरू होगा और बहुत अच्छे सेशंस ऐसे हैं जो एक्सक्लूसिव हैं, यानी सिर्फ साइन अप करने वालों को एक्सेस मिलेगा. 1 slice is free. 6 दिन के अंदर हम 17 स्लाइसेस कर रहे हैं, नाश्ता, लंच और रात का खाना लर्निंग के हवाले से. और आप उनमें से एक खाना फ्री, कोई भी जो चाहे एंजॉय कर सकते हैं जिस ट्रेनर का. डू साइन अप.
Stress shows itself in many different ways and forms. Some people lose their temper really quickly, others worry too much, and for some it translates into completely shutting down. However, there are people who don't get angry or worried or lose hope in the face of difficulties. It's not that they have some magical powers. It's just that they have a very different story going on in their head than us. Stress is not about external. It's about how we approach different tasks and challenges, which means it is entirely controllable. I'm Ali Syed, and I will be talking about stress and some ways to overcome it at the TRG LearnFest on the 10th of August. I look forward to seeing all of you there.
Hello everyone, my name is Neville Gaunt from the UK, and I'm delighted to be taking in TRG LearnFest. And I hope and encourage you to come along, have a listen, have fun, but more importantly, take action, because it's your actions that's going to make the difference. So come on board, have some fun, and I'll see you shortly.